curriculum-based CSE program has very strong and positive evidence of effectiveness. That means long-term and systematic teaching and learning of CSE is a good way in school. 1 or 2 class hours are very little to talk about sexuality in classroom. However, I understand many teachers in many countries have very few opportunities to teach sexuality education in classroom. If I have to give some advices to those who are willing to teach sexuality but only have 1 class hours, I would suggest them to first ask students' needs. According to my experience, students now might have no more than teachers thought. It's very important to make sure what we teach them is essentially what they want to know. Also, I believe that contents of sexuality should be age and developmental stage appropriate. For example, for students who are close to puberty, the knowledge, skills, and attitudes about their body changes and mental health are very important and useful. On the other hand, offering information about consent, sex, and relationship might be a better choice for those who are older.
Yeah, kind of a sneaky answer to that is to try to find different ways also to get some more time and steal it a bit from other subjects and to incorporate the talk about sexuality in some other subjects as well. For example, by reading a book, or that might be relevant. But for 1 hour, it depends a lot on the level of the pupils, you know, the age and the basic understanding of the matters. But I would probably go for some sort of how to interact, how to talk, how to interact with each other, with other people concerning sexual matters. It should be rights-based, focusing on the individuality, that people are different, something like that. So it's more like how to be a decent human being to each other, and to acknowledge and respect differences and diversity. It would be something concerning that. But I would also use this time in a way, a bit sneaky way, to also give more assignments and readings and point the kids or teenagers to the right direction. Okay, we have 1 hour, we can talk about these matters, but then, you know, I give you assignments, read this book and check this website, and there are these great, you know, leaflets over there in the table, you can take those. So I would provide them means to get more information.
Yeah.
So use that time to introduce the topic and where you can learn more, something like this. It's not a silly question. I understand this is a reality to many people. It's also a reality in Finland in many schools that teachers might have more than 1 hour in a year, but if they have 5, it's the same problem basically. You can use these couple of hours for some topics, but you still have a lot to cover, and it's very difficult to choose. So the different that I have learned in Finland and Japan concerns teachers' situation is that Finnish teachers have a lot of freedom to choose what they do with their time. So they can make more time if they need to.
First of all, I would be cheating a little bit and really making sure that those other learning areas, so particularly, like I said, the science or the human biology teacher is covering off the biological stuff for me, so that I wouldn't have to cover that in my 1 hour class. I think that's a really easy thing to do. That's their role, and then they can provide a pretty scientific view of this is what your body is like, and this is the changes, and this is how reproduction happens. But as I've seen in the research we've done with Australian students are on relationships, they want less on the biology. They often say to us, we kind of understand the biology, and we understand about the babies, and we understand about the bugs. So we get that side of it, but we really want to know more about how to be in a relationship with someone, what that might look like, issues around consent, communication, negotiation, looking after yourself as well, like learning to deal with breakups just the basic relationship things. So I would be wanting a really open conversational style that was really driven by the students and their questions. And of course, you've got to build on that in an age-appropriate way. What the topics that you cover off in early primary school are very different to what you do in upper high school. But often it's the relationship side that they really want to know. And I think consent is really important. And also another topic that's really important these days is navigating the online world, how to make ourselves the safest, or just understanding the risks that are out there as well are really important topics, and leave the biology for the science teachers.
I think that's very, very interesting. If you have only 1 hour, what are you supposed to focus? I think number one is that it's important for that teacher to talk with other teachers, because usually if you're not used to talk about sex education, suddenly there are your own norms, attitudes, experiences that could be the thing that you are urged to share with the younger generation. And as a teacher, instead, you're supposed to be a little bit more professional, and you're supposed to be there for the students, the pupils, the young people's sake, so they can find their own voice concerning attitudes, norms, and values. So that's one important part, to reflect what is this group of students needs from their age background, or from their broad societal background, social class background. So I would say again, asking the students to put anonymous notes in a box is a good way of getting a hint of what they need to know. And in this case, if you only have 60 minutes, I think it's also important to not forget about basic facts. Because if you have sex education or sex relationship knowledge that seldom, then it could be a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of insecurity, and a lot of taboos talking about these issues. So I think at least half of the time for basic physical, biological education about sexuality and about how the body and the brain function, can have reflections, discussions, and a critical way of discussing norms concerning sexuality and relationships.